so we've got just a little bit of a wobble.
Some
Shaft
of the
is
new
out of alignment, so it's the shimmy, shimmy, shimmy.
and yeah, there was a shaft wobble. And now we realized and there was a little wobble in the shaft, and
in effect, the shaft was going round like this as the coupling turned.
And all of a sudden there's this vibration, the shaft appears out of alignment.
Yeah, it was like going like this, which
Right.
is really not good.
Welcome aboard. We are Alexa, Pat, and Gilligan the Fat Boat Cat. Follow us as we live aboard and cruise the U.S. and Mexico on our 57-foot Nordhavn Noeta with no ETA.
James Knight and his crew at Yacht Tech worked really hard to get the shaft aligned exactly right. So when we launched and found that the alignment wasn't right, we were baffled and disappointed to learn that we were going to have to haul out again and pull the shaft out again. Here we go again.
Yeah.
I can see it.
Bent down.
All of them?
Yeah.
Huh.
It'll show up on the report.
For sure. No, that's good. But now it's been 2 weeks and we've been on the hard again after the 4 weeks last time.
They took the shaft, they sent it down to a prop shop down in Tacoma, and we were very specific in what we asked for. We wanted the coupling to be fitted and faced. So basically they put it on the shaft, couple it all up, put it on a lathe, spin it, and they check alignment, and they didn't do that. So when when everything came back this week,
We put the shaft and the coupling and everything back on, and it was still out of alignment. Yeah, so James literally put the shaft on a trailer, well, with some help, and he himself is driving it down there to go look with his own eyes and watch them do it, get it straight, and get it back up here. So I'm sure that's not how he wanted to spend his day today. We all know he has better things to do, but we very much appreciate that. So we'll know a lot more by the end of today. But now it's really cold and we're in puffy jackets and slippers, and I think we might break down and buy a heater. And
I wanted one 2 weeks ago, but
I didn't want to buy one because we're going back to Mexico and we don't need one, but I jinxed it. And so now, because I said don't get one, now I wish we had one. So we might just, well, it depends on what they say about the shaft, maybe. Because if we're going to splash, we have a heater once we're in the water, but just not when we're on the hard. So anyway, it's been a challenge mentally and emotionally, and we're watching the weather, and we watched another Lucky Penny take off today and yesterday, and they're heading south, and that's what we wanted to be doing too right now. So
yeah, they just made the big left turn, or they're in the process of. And
yeah,
we were hoping to go down with them, Pendana, which is a 62.
Well, not with them, but same direction at the same time.
Direction, yeah. It's always nice to have
other
kind
boats,
of buddy boats out there you can talk to. But
so
we're not going to have that.
We're just here a little longer, so it's not impossible. We're also dealing with some tip issues, import permit paper issues, and so we're trying to figure out how to get this boat imported into Mexico, hopefully in the next month. So it's a lot up in the air right now, and yeah, we're just trying to stay warm. So
it's an adventure.
Buy
a boat. It'll be fun, they said.
It is. It's great fun. It will be. Anyway, stay tuned. We'll know more probably this afternoon.
Yep.
Get about a foot more and we can start putting the coupler on.
In that bearing.
Yeah, you're just spinning the bearing. I'm not getting any coverage.
Okay. these surfaces here, this one and this one, are machined specifically so that when you close the gap, this face is straight, right? They haven't closed the gap. So this bolt needs to be done up first so that this is tight, and that controls these surfaces being straight. If you don't close that gap, there's nothing to hold them straight.
Boat is back in the water. We're gonna go get on board. This is, I don't know, for the third time. Anyway, shaft looks good. I'm so happy, and let's go float.
Okay.
We're underway, finally.
Oh, finally, 7 weeks?
Yeah, I don't know. We bought the boat mid-July, and here we are, October 8th.
8th.
It is 8:55 in the morning, and 49 minutes ago we left the dock, and we are going to make the big left turn and head out into the ocean this afternoon, and hopefully make our way down to at least San Francisco, but weather dependent. That'll take us 3.5 days or so. But the big news of the day is that we're finally cruising by ourselves on our boat.
Nobody but us.
We did have a short one the other day when we went from the fuel dock to our slip. Lasted about a minute, but this is really the first time we've been on board alone, cruising, figuring out its issues by ourselves, and feels good. A little daunting,
A
but
little daunting.
because we're going into the Pacific Ocean today.
I will admit, I'm nervous. We've touched everything on the boat, and our first passage is let's go to the Pacific Ocean.
Not generally something you'd want to do. We'd hope to have a lot more time to play and anchor out and break things, but
But we also, our first passage on the 50, we went from Barrington, Rhode Island to New York City. It was an all-nighter. That was our first passage on that boat. So.
yeah, and we hadn't done anything.
know.
And that boat sat. This boat has been at least running. It just came from Alaska. Just before that, it came from Hawaii. So we know. But like Pat said, we've touched everything on this boat. So there's potential for issues. But today's our weather window. And the next one, it's hard to know when the next one will be. With boats, weather is really critical. So this was when we needed to go. So we're going.
Yeah, we feel good. We should make at least Crescent City. There's a real good chance that we'll make San Francisco as well.
Yeah.
So it's just really, we got to watch and see. There might be a little wind developing around Cape Mendocino, which is kind of the big one down going south. So
Yeah. And we should probably mention too, because I think last we left off, we didn't have a shaft in the boat.
oh yes, yes.
So the shaft drama got kind of goofy. So first time we hauled out, we did dozens and dozens of projects. We did pull the shaft, but we didn't send it in for alignment because it didn't appear to need it because it had been working from Alaska and there were no issues. So it sat on the ground for 3 weeks right next to the boat while we did all these boat things. Then we put it in and we splashed, and all of a sudden there's this vibration. The shaft appears out of alignment.
Yeah, it was like going like this, which
Right.
is really not good.
So 3 days later, we had to haul back out again, pull that shaft to have the shaft analyzed this time. So the shop comes and picks it up. It's a few hours away. It's a 17.5-foot shaft, and giant propeller too. They put him on a truck, drove him a few hours south, had him for almost a week, and then brought him back up, said we've straightened up the shaft. The coupling that holds the shaft is fine. It doesn't need anything. And the propeller had some little bends in it, but we've straightened them, and it's fine. So we put them all back in the boat, and and before we go in the water, James starts to do some analysis, turning the shaft, with it in place and with some measuring tools, and finds that we're still out of alignment. It's not perfect, and he spent a long time perfectly centering everything, the engine and the engine mount, so it's got to do with his shaft, and James is not happy at this point. So he calls the prop shop and said, hey, something's still wrong. I'd like to come down and see what you're doing. I don't think that what needed to be done was done. And so James pulls it out, rigs his own trailer. He drives it a few hours south and gets in the shop. They pull it in, and immediately the shop guy, super nice guy, it's his 70th birthday, and he'd kind of come in out of retirement to squeeze us in because they have a lot of other boats they're doing, but we're pretty adamant that something wasn't done correctly. So he looks at it and says, yeah, no, this hasn't been touched. This nothing's been straightened. The coupling's it needs faced. It's not straight. And so let's do it. And meanwhile, while they're there talking, it turns out that the gentleman that had our shaft the first time quit that day. So we don't know if he did anything to the shaft or if he just did some paperwork and sent it back to us. Shop made it right, it was a lot of weeks out of the water for somebody just not doing their job, unfortunately.
Sorry, I'm altering the route a little bit.
He's changing our course, so he's not just ignoring us, but you don't want to go over land, minor details. No, I'm kidding, we weren't going over land. So anyway, James brings it back up, puts it in, tightens some things up, and voila, it's within 6 thousandths of an inch alignment, meaning is really close to perfect. It was 20 thousandths of an inch off, and it sounds not like very much, but with such a long shaft, it actually makes a vibration, which is probably what caused we had a broken engine mount when we bought the boat, and we knew that. But it's probably what caused that. So I think we're good. She's riding really smooth. We don't hear any weird vibrations. And that's the saga of the shaft. Anything I said wrong or you want to add to that?
No, I'm just playing.
All right, he's just playing, making sure we get out of these islands. It's beautiful out here. Waypoint, beeping. It's all new software to us. So
Well, we've had this, but
yeah, we've had
the
this
interface
software, but it's a newer interface, and it's got new beeps. Anyway, we'll give updates along the way, but we are underway. Party!
I'm James Knight. I am in Florida right now in my office here at Yacht Tech. It is October the 13th, and I'm getting ready to head up to Washington, actually, day after tomorrow. Just catching up on a few things here, and Alexa and Pat have contacted me from Noeta to ask me to put together a little video explanation of what happened over the last couple of weeks, because they're putting a new video out and they wanted to explain why they were delayed on their trip, or delayed, their departure was delayed. You can see from the videos that, and I'm sure a bunch of you have questions about why the boat had to come back out of the water again. So I'm going to try and explain that. Janice, my wife, and I brought that boat down from Homer, Alaska. We did about 1,600 miles with a friend of mine from Australia, Warwick, and Janice's sister. And it was a great trip. But prior to leaving and on the survey, and I was very involved in that survey, as I usually am when we sell a boat, the surveyor didn't really know Nordhavns. I do. I know them quite well. And I've seen a lot of stuff over the last 24 years. And one of the things that I have seen are engine mounts breaking. And I was paying careful attention to the engine mounts on that boat during the survey. We did a haul out, as you saw in the video, probably at midnight or 2 o'clock in the morning or something. Anyway, didn't have a huge amount of opportunity to see the boat out in rough water, but just from forward and astern and putting a little bit of load on the engine, I could see that aft starboard engine mount was showing signs of perhaps being broken. And
So I was very cautious about the trip down, watching the weather and not pushing the engine. When we did push the engine a couple of times, we did detect some vibration, which was indicative of that engine mount being broken, because 3 mounts is not enough to support an engine when it's pushing the boat along. And when we pulled the boat out of the water, we did in fact find that the aft starboard mount was broken. In fact, Alexa has pictures of that. Maybe she can put one up. I took the mounts out. I jacked the engine up, took the mounts out, put new mounts in, painted all the engine mount brackets. So I took all the brackets off the engine, put everything back together nice and clean. And I had to do some adaptation because the engine mount lifters on the new mounts, cushy mounts, good soft mounts, nice and quiet. The lifters are much heftier on the new mounts, which is important because the stud is what broke. And those new hefty lifters will give the studs a little bit more, or quite a lot more support. So hopefully we won't break studs again. Anyway, I determined that we were going to align the engine once it got back in the water, align the engine and shaft once we got back in the water. So I put it together. I didn't dial the shaft, but I did. I mean, it was nice and smooth. I could turn the prop with one finger, so I was pretty happy about the way it all went back together. I had put a laser up the tube to make sure that the back end of the engine was in the right spot. I did have to adapt those engine mounts just to make them fit, because they're a bit bigger. The mounts themselves are not bigger, but with the new lifters, there wasn't a lot of space. So anyway, I was happy with all of that, and I was happy with the way the shaft turned and the prop turned. Put it back in the water, but I was unable to get the couplings to align. The shaft coupling and the transmission coupling would not. I couldn't get them to parallel to each other. So that told me that the coupling on the shaft was probably not square, and it surprised me a little bit because of my trip down, and I didn't really detect that on the trip down, but I made the decision that the boat had to come back out of the water again. Pat and Alexa, it was a tough decision to make. I was pretty frustrated. They could tell I was not very happy that day. I think that was the day that we did the name changing, which you probably saw in one of the previous videos. Anyway, I had to leave town also, so that was another difficult decision for me because I was scheduled to go on a trip. I went to Newfoundland and down to Panama, back to Florida, and then I promised them that I would be back out there ASAP to align the shaft after it got back from the shop. So they pulled the boat out of the water while I was gone. The shaft went down to Tacoma and it went to a prop shop. They straightened the shaft. I spoke to them and said, please fit and face that coupling. If you can imagine the shaft, center line of the shaft, and the coupling sitting on there, you don't want it crooked. You want it to be square to the shaft, 90 degrees. And in order to do that, sometimes a split coupling can be a little bit tricky to get to sit on the shaft properly. And so they put it in the lathe and they'll face it. So they cut the surface of the face of the coupling to make sure that it's square. And Alexa can maybe put a video up. I sent her a video of them eventually doing that. They sent the shaft back and it was in the boat by the time I got back to the boat. But I was still unable to align it. And this time I wasn't going to put it in the water without making sure 100% that it was aligned prior to going in the water, and then I would do the final alignment in the water. So I couldn't dial it. It was dialing at 20 thousandths out or something, which is way, way above what I want to see. I want to see it at less than 6 thousandths. 3 thousandths is good on the run out, but was unable to do it. I played around with the pin and the coupling. I did a lot of different things. It got very frustrating. And finally I said, I don't think that they did what they said they did. So we loaded it on a trailer and I drove it down to Tacoma again. Found out that the machinist that had worked on it had quit, so maybe that had something to do with it. And so a new machinist who was very diligent, I watched, he and I put the shaft on the bench. We checked it was bent, so he straightened it. And when I say bent, I mean very, very small amount of bend, but that's pretty typical. There's always a bend in a shaft. We just try and get it to a minimum. Anyway, he put it in the lathe and we faced it and put it back on the boat and all in one day, but I might add, I drove it down there went into the prop shop, worked with the machinist, put it back on the trailer, drove it back up. Alex came over and brought the keys to the forklift in the yard. We put it back in the boat. That was probably 6 o'clock at night, 7 o'clock at night. We had it coupled up. And then the next morning I went back and did a final alignment, put the boat back in the water again, and took it for a sea trial. And I was very relieved that the sea trial went well and everything was nice and smooth. And Pat and Alexa were very happy. So the moral of the story is, when you pull the shaft out of the boat and put it back in again, you probably want to check the alignment, regardless of the fact you just did 1,600 miles and everything seemed okay. I think probably the broken engine mount sort of led me astray a little bit. Perhaps the fact that the coupling was not aligned on the shaft was what caused the engine mount to break over the last who knows how many thousands of miles. But we're always learning. I like to think that I'm learning all the time, and I certainly learned from this one, and I won't do it again. And also, don't assume that when a prop shop tells you that everything's been done, that it actually has. Unfortunately, we can't always rely on our contractors to do what they say they've done. In this instance, I think they were misled by their machinist, who quit that day or quit the next day. So I don't hold them responsible. But and they've done the right thing for us. They're not going to bill us for that second trip. So a lot of frustration. Hate to pull a boat back out of the water. We always try and avoid that. It gets expensive, but here we are, and they're on their way, and the boat's running beautifully. So again, I'm James Knight, and hopefully that explains to everybody why the boat had to come out of the water twice. We will see you in another video, I'm sure.
There he is. Well, we're here.
Yes, we made it to San Francisco Bay. We're in Berkeley, but we really wanted to just kind of do a conclusion of this whole Shaft Saga. It's over, and we're grateful it's over. It was an adventure for a few months, and we learned a lot. And
I think everybody learned a lot on this one.
Yeah, but we really wanted to thank how thorough James and his yacht tech crew were, and really how grateful we are that they were by our side. We wouldn't have done any of this. We wouldn't have bought this boat if it weren't for Jay.
Thanks,
apparently.
Jay.
Thanks, Jay Flaherty at Yacht Tech.
Thanks.
Even James says it's Jay's fault that we bought this boat. No, we're thrilled we bought this boat, and it's a great boat. The shaft really was actually the only unknown.
That was the only
All the other
surprise.
projects we did, we knew we were going to do them before we even bought the boat. And the shaft was the only surprise, so I guess that's pretty good. But thanks to James, Jason at Yacht Tech, Brandy, Chris Bennett, and Tall Chris, and even the Pacific Marine guys at the shipyard.
Yeah.
They spent a lot of time with our boat.
Alex, Chuck, Taylor. Those are the three guys off the top of my head.
Todd.
Todd.
All of them really were very thorough in making our boat workable again. Yeah. And honestly, the guy who came out of retirement to work on the shaft at the end, it was his...
Here's to you, dude.
It was I don't know his name, I'm sorry. It was his 70th birthday, and he came in, and we're grateful that he did. So it took a huge team to get this boat to San Francisco this week. So thank you to everybody. It rode really smooth the whole way. And
well, the boat ran really well. The seas were not so
The shaft
smooth.
ran smoothly. I don't mean the rest of it. The rest of it was miserable. But you can... that video will be coming next about how that cruise went. Stay tuned. But anyway, thank you to everybody. We did it.
We're here.
And the Shaft Saga is over.
Shaft Saga's over. There's more.
Not on the shaft.
Not on the shaft.
No. There's more coming.
But there's more.